Hey y'all, what's up? Today I'll be doing a time-lapse video of a drawing that I made for a birthday gift for a friend all the way back in March for one of my roommates. It's one of his favorite shows and movies. It's kind of interesting how you could classify it. But I figured now is the perfect time to upload this, even though I finished the drawing back in March. It's actually the perfect time of the year to watch this show. So I figured now was the perfect time to upload this time-lapse. So if you want to stick around, listen to some of the story, I guess I want to talk about, I don't know, my plans for this video changed a little bit, and so I figured it would be cool to talk about the process of, why I have always been interested in YouTube, and why I've wanted to do YouTube my entire life, pretty much. And talking about the process of where I've gotten to be where I'm at a point that I finally want to upload stuff. And just kind of talking through my process of making this artwork and in comparing it to the process of YouTube. So yeah, if you want to stick around, go right ahead. Let's get started. If you haven't watched Over the Garden Wall yet, I highly recommend. This is a speed paint of a scene from that, but it is basically a movie, but it's recorded in smaller segments like a cartoon. It's made by Cartoon Network, so that kind of gives you a glimpse into what it is about. That. But it follows the story of two young boys that become lost in a mysterious forest, and they have to work their way to find the way back home. I don't want to say anything else because it's kind of one of those ones where it's best to go in it with little information, but I highly recommend it. We kind of watch it every year now, multiple times, and the music throughout it is just absolutely wonderful, and the message and the story, it's just really good. Go watch it. And yeah, I figured that I love making gifts for people that are really thoughtful and just what they like, but I like making art stuff for it because it's one of those gifts where there isn't a price quantity that you can put on it because you use your time, which is one of the only things that we can't ever get back. So it means a lot more to the person, and it's one of my favorite ways of giving gifts to people, and so that's what I made it for. So yeah, anyways, so the big kind of question, or one of the main topics that I wanted to talk about in this video, is why YouTube has always been something that I've been interested in. And I think that YouTube has always been something that I've been interested in because of just the concept of what YouTube is, where there's free content that can be, at this point in life, for most of the world, is accessible to anyone that has access to the internet, which even if you don't have access to the internet, there are ways to get access to the internet. So the way that it's free content pretty much for anyone is part of the reason. But then also you can publish anything and everything. There isn't really anything anymore that you can't learn on YouTube. And I have always been someone that's been learning in the background from it, never really engaging in any YouTube channels or YouTubers, and never engaging in any comment sections, but always just kind of passively living through all these YouTubers. And they become your friends a little bit through this weird form of existence that we now have. And it doesn't really matter the skill level you have, but if you just keep with what you're doing and you build a following, people will continue to watch you, and they actually get excited when you upload new videos. And this was one of the barriers that I had when trying to enter, thinking that nobody would ever get excited, but it was wait, I would get excited when certain YouTubers would upload, and no matter what the video was, I would watch it. So it's why wouldn't I think the same about myself with it? Also, there is this weird, there's not a lot of restrictions. The restrictions to do YouTube is quite reasonable. You don't really need anything technically. As long as you have a phone and like an idea, you can pretty much upload anything to YouTube. Even like it just is a great way of like sharing videos and stuff like that. And there's stuff on YouTube that everyone can enjoy, that if you don't like it, you just find something else. Like there is unlimited content of stuff, and there is where it isn't a full video, it isn't a full series, so it's not necessarily as like demanding of trying to captivate your attention as other forms of media are out there, where it's not like a television series where you have to watch the whole thing, or not like a movie where you have to spend an hour and a half. You can literally spend like 3 minutes or anywhere from like 5 hours to it. The content is just so much more accessible. But then the main part about why I've always been interested in it, I think, is that it shows the art of learning in such a different way, where I've learned how to be an artist through YouTube entirely. I didn't take any art classes other than the art classes that I've had to take in middle school, but I didn't take any art classes in high school. I haven't taken any art classes until this semester, and I've learned how to be an artist entirely on YouTube, and through watching, learning from others doing it, like getting recommendations, reading the books, finding my own books, and just learning how to learn through alternative means, not just like through school or through experience, but learning by like watching others, which is what YouTube does. And it also, like, the platform itself kind of becomes a portfolio to show what you are, which is honestly for what I want to do in my life, and my career path is like, my ideas has changed a lot, but for someone that isn't very good at showing themselves on social media, YouTube provides a very good outlet for that, where you can create all these different projects and all these different ideas, and it's not even for others at this point in my life. It's more that I just like creating things and want others to feel some form of like comfort in seeing it and enjoying it, and like, why not share it with the world? Because I enjoy it, someone else out there probably does too. But I already set out a goal for myself that was unrealistic, and my one video a month and life getting in the way of things this last month, because I got like hit by a train this last month, and it's something that I want to share, but I have to give it time. And I can't rush myself with this like I do everything else in my life. And I have to take things slow for the first time ever, and I'm not good at taking things slow. I actually really struggle with taking things slow. It's one of my probably pitfalls. But I wanted to even address that in this video about like how we do set really big expectations for ourselves. At least I do. I set these huge expectations for myself, and then I'm not able to achieve them because of how high the expectation is. And it gets even worse when you have other people in your life that are setting these expectations for you that are lesser than what you are actually setting, but they can't recognize the fact that you're setting higher expectations for yourself, and they're getting frustrated with you because you're like not able to meet the bare minimum of it. But it's like, no, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it way faster than when you told me to do it. I'm just going about it at it has to be this way because I know it will work, and my way that it will work is not the fast way sometimes. It is the really like slow roundabout way where I have to read 10 books to figure out the one answer I was looking for or whatever, but I learn it on such a better way, and that doesn't mean that my way of doing it is not right, because I've gotten to be where I am today, and I consider myself highly skilled in the things that I do. But it also just means that I end up never finishing some of the projects or these things that I set out to do because of how high the expectations are that I'm setting on myself. And nobody's setting these on me. They're all my own doings, which makes it difficult. But it also means that I have thousands of unfinished projects that just leads to this huge, overwhelming sense of like, one, like dread, but also just like huge frustration. And I just see all of these like unfinished ideas, and I'm like needing to start considering graduate school, because like this last month I've realized that I want to go and get a doctorate in musical arts or fine arts. I haven't quite found my pathway yet, but I don't have enough like actual like content, but I do, to showcase my skills, but it's also just not enough for what I'm capable of. So it's like, from all these unfinished projects that I've started, they're actually creating issues now. And it's just really interesting if we think about the YouTube process and we think about the whole thing of it, that YouTube has these nesting dolls of projects, because you have the actual filming of the video, which, depending on what the content is, can be a really high barrier to enter. Like making a speed paint of this, you have to have a lot of skills. Like to make this speed paint alone, you have to have skills about being able to have typography skills and knowing how to copy fonts and stuff like that to make the Over the Garden Wall label. And then you have to have skills of knowing how to copy the art, and just, there's so much barriers to enter in making art videos on YouTube. But that's not just to say, art videos are what I know, and like, that's not what this channel is entirely about, because there will be music and there will be games and there will be book stuff too, hence Chaotically Creating. But that's a high barrier to enter for all of those things, where you have to have skill in those. And that's true for any like specialty that's on YouTube. But that's just the filming of the actual video. Then you have the script. And how do you write a script when you've never wrote a script before? What is that like? How is that different? How do you record the actual video? And then you have the editing, which people spend years getting good at editing. And the system of editing, the actual software itself, is not something that you can just kind of fumble around and make something in. Yeah, you can, but it's not like, there's a lot of hidden things in an editing software. And that just encompasses the whole process for just one video. And that doesn't even include like all of it. And I guess it felt really fitting to go back to finish the project inside of a project. The project being the actual drawing. I finished this drawing. I set out with an idea and I actually finished it, and I gave it to him, and he has it in his room and he loves it. And so I'm like, but I recorded it intending to upload it at some point. And I recorded it and I didn't do a great job recording it. I recorded it halfway in the wrong direction because I'm still learning, and forgot that like you have to record things well. My tripod is a Coleman 1-gallon water jug. That's a box that I had left unopened and I plopped on my desk. But I recorded it, and the editing process actually revealed, it actually helped me remove some of my imposter syndrome that I had put on myself for so long, and that I'd been feeling for most of my life. And I kept thinking that I would be done when I was watching the video, and yet I would add more things, or I would like look at it and be like, oh, that needs to be fixed. Like I would critique myself, and then like I would fix it in the video like 5 minutes later, which was just, it was so funny that I was like noticing these things from even watching it back. And it was like the first time I've ever actually watched myself like make art, which I've for always have had that imposter syndrome of, it's not good enough. I can't draw people very well, and like people are really difficult for me to draw and they don't look great. But it's like people are like one of the hardest things to draw, because it's us and we know what it's supposed to look like. So when it doesn't look right, it's so like easy to get critical about it. But I realized from this that most of the time I just needed to start the project, and it was actually a lot easier and obtainable than I thought it was. And so I guess now I'll talk to you a little bit about the process that I went in to making this artwork, and how it was actually a lot more comparable to the actual filming of the video, like breaking it down into progress by progress with it. All right, so the process of this whole artwork took me about 4 hours to make, and it was done in multiple different takes. So it's hard to sit down in like one sitting to do it all. So I normally would just like record for like 40 minutes or whatever, and then I would stop recording and set it up later. So that's why some of the shoots look a little bit different with it. I tried my best to make the editing of it, like the shot, look the same, but I was using a different software than I used for the first one. So it's been interesting trying to figure out how to use the different one. I'm using Premiere Pro to edit the video too, for those that want to know. And the materials I used for this actual artwork, I'll link them in the description of the video if people want to check them out, but is the Prang watercolor, the Ohulu Copic markers. I can't remember which ones I used entirely with that, but that's what I just have them all mixed together. I can't remember the paper I used. It was either from just a generic sketchbook, or it's nothing really too fancy by any means. It's just whatever paper I had accessible, to be honest. For lining it, I used the Micron fine liners. I tested it, a bunch of different ones, to see which ones would bleed, because I was doing the ink first and then the watercolor or the coloring of it, so I didn't want the marker to bleed into it, whatever. And then for the colored pencils that I'll use at the end, they're a mixture, I think, of the Faber-Castell or Prismacolor ones. I don't remember entirely which ones I used, but I have both of them, so those are the ones that I guess I'd recommend if people are looking for it. Some of those are expensive art supplies, though, so that's also kind of a barrier to enter with the art community, is like needing to have the best art supplies by any means. Is you don't need to have the best art supplies. You actually really don't. I prefer drawing with a Bic pen over a pencil, to be honest. So sometimes having the best material of it isn't necessary. It actually is hurting you sometimes to have the best material, because it's made for those that are skilled at the craft, and not that you aren't skilled, you just don't know how to use it yet. So the process of it is, I started with the pencil sketch of the artwork. I found a reference photo online, one of the top ones of it, and I was like, all right, let's just sketch it out. I messed up quite a few times with the like laying of the text. You have to make sure it's like centered right, so that it doesn't, because if it's not centered right, it's going to look weird. So I did that. I wrote it in a weird way where the R and the W of the over and the wall like needed to line up right, so I did those first. I think in the video you can see me, I cut off actually part of the paper, because it just ended up working out like that, it looked better that way, so I did that. After I did the whole pencil sketch of the artwork, I erased it slightly, so that my lines were very visible, like not very visible, but like visible enough, so that then when I traced it, it wasn't a bunch of like pencil ink on the sheet, and I wouldn't smudge it with my hand. And then after I traced it all with the Micron, I like did a harder eraser, so like I erased all of the pencil work so that none of that would get smeared with the markers. And then I colored with the markers. I had a swatch sheet. I don't think I get any footage of it actually being on film. I tried to edit that down because I figured most people didn't want to just wait for me watching it to work for like ever. Because I don't have all the colors that were like perfect for it. You can never have all the colors that are perfect for it, but knowing like a little bit of like color theory and how that works is beneficial with it. And there's a point where when I'm coloring one of the characters' hair, I use like green, and it's the first color, and I'm like saying to myself the entire time, I'm like, trust the process, it'll look fine, and it turned out fine. So sometimes there are moments where you literally just have to tell yourself, trust the process, because it is long and it takes forever, but it pays off, and it sucks to finish things, and I like hate trying to finish things. There's that point where you're trying to do a project where there's actually a graph that depicts it too, where you're like, the longer you spend on it, the less enjoyment you get from doing it. So sorry, the script might be all over the place. I'm learning how to speak to a camera. Not a camera, it's just my voice memo on my phone, but I'm learning how to do that, and so sometimes my ideas might be a bit everywhere. But I figured it's the second video. There aren't going to be a whole lot of people that see it. It's okay to make the mistakes and mess up, and I've learned a lot in comparison to the last video to this video. I was struggling enough just to fit like 15 minutes of audio, and now I already have gotten like 20 minutes of audio. So I've improved, and my editing has improved even alone too. So, and then after I colored with the markers, I did watercolor in the background. The reason for this is that I actually wanted the characters to stand out a little bit more so that the background looked a little bit fuzzier, to differentiate different art styles, because that kind of happens in the cartoon itself. And I wanted the characters to look a little bit like they were in a different environment. So that's kind of why I did the background in watercolor, so that it has that kind of more fairy tale kind of vibe to it a little bit, if you will. But that's why I did that. And I also mixed the watercolors off camera, and edited down waiting, because there was just so much footage of me doing nothing, and I would be like editing the video, and I would forget that I have to like be watching the video, and then like I would be like, oh, pause it, and then I was like, wait, nope, I gotta go back like a minute, because I need to like show my hand re-entering the film. And yeah, it's a process. After the watercolor, I added some pencil detail with some colored pencils to give it a lot more, to help showcase the different like elements of it, so that you could really separate the floor from the walls and the side panels and stuff like that. And I think like adding the colored pencil alone added so much differentiation to it. It like was insane. And I also didn't really realize how much colored pencil work I actually did on it until I watched the video, which was like, I kept like being like, oh, this is the part where I kept being like, am I done yet? And it was like, nope, there's still more. And so then after the pencils, I did some finishing touches where I went back with the Micron and I outlined the characters to give them even more of a pop, so that they stuck out like more from the background of it. So I did that by just going around the character outline, not the actual details of it. And then I went over the garden wall again. So that's the whole process of making the art. And the comparisons that I have to it is like, it's interesting because the video process is can be broken down in a similar fashion, where you have the actual making of the video itself, where you're making the content of it, where for me, that was the artwork. But then you have the actual editing the footage to its bare bones. And like, thankfully this one, editing a time-lapse is not, like, you don't need to really add a whole lot of extra, like, cuts or anything into it, or anything, like, you're not, like, the cuts are pretty simple that you're doing. You're just removing the stuff that's, like, dead air, so that is nice in the sense there. But it was from 41 minutes, 4 hours of footage, I got down to 41 minutes when I sped it up to 400%. So, like, that's a huge amount of change. And then I was like, well, do I want 41 minutes of content? And it's like, well, I don't know how much I'm going to talk yet. So we can't know if I need to speed up the video faster, or if I just have enough footage, if I have enough of a story to tell for 41 minutes. So then I was like, okay, well, now I have to write the script. But how do I write a script? And like, what are the different ways to write a script? Do I write it out word for word, or do I like more freeform it? And I ended up coming to a conclusion of writing out bullet points was the best option, where I wrote in bold like the different topics I wanted to cover. So I had like the introduction, over the garden wall, what is it? Why YouTube has always been something I've been interested in. And I use those as kind of like the guidelines of what I wanted to talk about. And then below it, I put bullet points of like this is what I want to talk about within that, and these are all good reference points, but then I want to give myself more free form in it so it doesn't feel like I'm reading perfectly from a script, because I'm not reading perfectly from a script. It's an outline. And then I actually had an idea for the video of what I wanted to do, which was going to be talking about my experiences this last month with life, and it is not the right video for it. It's not what I want to do for it. I want it to actually show me as like a person and not just a voice or not just my artwork. I actually want myself in it, and I have a lot more ideas of something bigger, so it has to wait until I'm ready for it. And also just not being in a place that I'm mentally ready to share that with the whole world and have it out there forever. So then I had to change and be like, what do I want my idea to be then? And I think I'm happy with where this video actually ended up, and I'm happier with what it is that I changed and I pivoted that idea than I would have been had I had done my original idea, which is also like a valid thing to have. And then after I wrote the script, I am recording the voiceover, which I'm currently recording the voiceover. And then I wrote down on my script that I need to edit the voiceover for this part, but I don't think I'm going to edit the voiceover because I think it's a little bit better that it's raw and it's real. It feels more like a conversation that is one-sided in that sense, but feel free to comment and share your guys' experiences if you want, about just kind of like having a lot of ambitions but having no direction with it. And I guess to like hit the final note on the video of like what the advice or like my words of wisdom, if you will, I guess. And I wrote in the script, the start of something new, like the one, I think it's start of something new. I think it's in High School Musical, right? I don't remember, but the song, and I was like, oh, that's cute. That's a little cheesy, but that's cute. So I guess my advice is from someone that has learned a lot of things with not a lot of life. I've sacrificed a lot to be where I am today, don't get me wrong, and I'll be making a Meet the Artist soon as a video idea, but I want to like draw myself actually, because I never draw myself, and like draw the things that I'm interested in, and I think that will reveal a lot and give more like validity to like my advice, but that's fine. It's really difficult to start something new. It's really difficult, and I've struggled in a lot of the things that I'm really good at, that I'm really good at them, but I can promise you that it has been hard to get to where I am, and I've had countless of just moments of just pure frustration with myself from it, because there's just so much information that you don't understand in the beginning. The barrier to enter is actually just extremely high, and you have to come to the realization that you're going to be really bad in the beginning. Like, it's going to be so clunky and just annoying, and you're going to know you're going to be bad at it, and that's what probably is the worst part of it all. But, like, and the hardest part is because of how bad you are in the beginning, it's actually going to make you want to not continue, because you just see, and you're like, nobody wants to see this. But there actually is a point to, some people want to see the behind the scenes, and some people want to learn from other people that have gotten to where they are, because like that's how we learn, is by like watching other people. And if you allow yourself to be bad and know that it's not a judgment on your character, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, it doesn't mean you'll never be good at the thing, it's just you literally just lack knowledge and you lack skill, and you're going to get there. And all of a sudden you start fumbling around a little bit, you make a few mistakes, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I actually I did that, and I'm kind of proud of it. And all of a sudden it gets easier, and you start to get better at it. And then there does come a point where you think you're the best of it, and then you realize you're not. And the process kind of starts over again. But just allow yourself to be bad at the thing. You learn a lot more than you give yourself credit for. And the fact that you even went out and tried something new is enough to give yourself a pat on the back. So thanks for watching this video and listening to me ramble about whatever. I hope you enjoyed some of it, and if you want to comment, feel free to do so. And like do all the things like share, comment, subscribe. I don't know. There's going to be more like this. I hope to get another video out in November to get back on track with my goals, but I'm not going to hold myself to this high standard and try to anymore because it's not good for me, and I need to take time to slow down and figure out life. But making videos and sharing things like this is something that I enjoy, and like I love it, and I hope it shows. So thanks, and I hope y'all have a great day. Bye.